Hello, lovely, jubbly ad-libbers and marketers of every shape and size out there. Greetings. Now, I sent an email out to everyone at Ad-Lib the other day asking, what do you guys think the one thing uppermost in most CMOs' minds is right now? Alan emailed back to say it was probably lunch, but the consensus opinion from everyone else was that it was personalisation at scale. But what is this thing, personalisation at scale?
I think it's really a question of what does personalization mean? On one end of the spectrum, it can be an extremely creepy feeling where the computer or someone in some cloud somewhere seems to know everything about you. And you know, I've had experiences where I talk about tennis to a friend on the tennis court, and literally the next ad I see is, you know, selling me tennis grips. And that feels sort of creepy. I don't even really know how that works. But that's not what personalization necessarily needs to be. Personalization for me is almost interchangeable with relevance, which means I need you to know a little bit about what I'm doing. What is my context? What do I care about right now? For you to give me something that's going to add value in this specific moment. That's all personalization really needs to be. Again, you know, it's not a magic 8-ball. Personalization is not suddenly going to sell you a lot of product. All we're trying to do is to say that there's a tremendous amount of advertising that is just simply wasted because it's completely irrelevant to me, to a point where I want to ignore it. I wish it were never there. And so the bar is almost so low that when we mean by personalization, it doesn't need to be creepy at all. In fact, it can be pleasantly surprising.
I realized that brands were interested in being more engaging to the consumer when Coke started writing people's names on Coke cans. When I worked for Google, it was a scary thing, right? It was about, creepy sort of like following of the consumer around and remarketing, engaging them with products they'd looked at on their website. But what I think was missed was that these big brands were looking at studies that were coming out from the likes of McKinsey and BCG in the aftermath of the Coke situation, and that actually personalization, if it was deemed to be useful, could be extremely valuable to the consumer. And I think this was where I was particularly caught, was less on the personalization story, the scary, creepy side of following someone around the internet with crappy product ads, more the let's try and engage with the consumer in a useful, relevant way. If I went to my butcher and the butcher knew that I liked, sausages, probably he'd talk to me about sausages every time I come to the butcher. And that same opportunity is now available online. The way that the ads are tailored and the messaging that's delivered to that consumer can be about customer care.
So what about sausages in this horrid time of COVID? Imagine your butcher sends a message to you saying, I know you love sausages, but here's the thing. In this time of lockdown, I'll deliver them to you. Well, don't you just love him for it? And then as we begin to emerge from lockdown, your butcher sends another message saying, hey, there are several other people in your street who love sausages too. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a barbecue. So do please come along and meet them. And suddenly you're the member of a sausage club.
Usefulness is something that all millennials lean into, all Gen X lean into. No longer is it acceptable for a brand just to state their situation and state their product.
Personally, I think those brands that do get digital understand that everything they do online has to be useful, usable, and or delightful. Otherwise, it's just digital landfill. So take a look at Optrex. Now, their data showed that there was about to be an enormous spike in the pollen count. So in serving me, a hay fever sufferer, an ad about this, I was forewarned and forearmed so I could do something about it, and ideally with one of their products. Now, for me, that is useful and usable stuff. So my big question is that at a time when even Google tell us that 54% of customers say, yes, personalization, we like it. Why is it then that only 3% of advertisers are actually personalizing their ads?
One of the things that's puzzled me about marketers is why they haven't taken advantage of this opportunity. Everyone knows it works. Everyone knows. And that's why media buying has been doing it for some time, like better targeting, better buying strategies, more tailored marketing. I think content is complicated to manage, right? So there's rules around talent, the cost of editing and adjusting that content is also expensive. There's very little investment in technology in that space. It's all done by humans.
I think that's such an important point that Oli makes, that all of the tech developments have been about media delivery. But what about content? What about creativity? Here's a case study from Australia and how an agency has been doing something similar to the kind of work I think that we could be doing.
You're always doing it. You're doing the roof, doing a cheeky solid for a mate. Just doing. Don't stop doing. Do more with Natalie's second-hand hatch. Built tough in 2006. A workhorse with horsepower with under 150,000 Ks. Add it to your tool belt today.
So what's absolutely fabulous about this is that in a nanosecond, artificial intelligence is able to edit together any number of 1 million variants for you. And it does that by selecting different takes from each of these 15 buckets. Now, within each of the buckets, there are variables. You can have different openings. You can have a second shot that's different. The third and fourth and fifth buckets, again, those are library images that are completely different. Then you put in different bits of dialogue from the actor, and there you have the registration number and the name of the person whose car you're selling. So what happens is that you end up, as I say, with nearly 1 million variants of the same ad.
Make believe made real. In 2001, it purrs like a lion and roars like a lion. With under 200,000 kilometers, a breath of breathtaking freedom. Freedom. Carol's second-hand hatch. How dare you?
You can't be jealous if it's yours.
Now that is personalisation, and that is personalisation at scale.
Creative can be made better through a number of different levers. One of them is through personalization. One of them is through better collaboration between the creative agency and the media agency. Another one is even if you don't do personalization with your creative, if you just do better creative, creative that is more engaging, that drives campaign performance. So making your creative better is very highly correlated to better campaign performance, and the pathway with which you make your creative better is not just one thing. It's a number of different things. And I think, obviously at Ad-Lib, we're spending a lot of time thinking about all those use cases. Creative testing, refreshing your creative during a campaign while the campaign is in flight.
So I asked Adit, well, what about cookies? What happens when Google deprecate cookies? Is this going to be good or is this going to be bad for the ad industry?
I think cookies going away in a weird way could be one of the best things that happen for advertising, because it's going to reduce the creepiness factor. It's going to reduce the technical nature of advertising and make everything about data and cookie matching and real time, and take us back to driving a human emotional response, which is what advertising used to be all about.
Having a mission and trying to provide something, as I say, that's valuable to the consumer is where brands will win in the future, I think.
So thank you for watching Personalisation at Scale. There we have it. And if you are a CMO and personalisation does keep you up at night, well, you know who to come and talk to. So in the meantime, pip pip from all of us. Bye.